Mail call, ladies and gentlemen. It's mail time. Wow, I messed up my volume real hard on that one. I apologize. I will fix that in post. But everybody that's watching on YouTube got an earful. Mail call. I didn't mean to hit you with that. Man, I'm sorry. In any event, we're through that part. Welcome to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I am Dan Vespris, and today I am joined by my good friend Adam King, who I'm going to bring up on the screen right here at the outset because you, universe, magical people that I'm sure are out there watching or listening, have sent in a bevy of questions, and Adam and I have rifled through the mailbag to find 3 to 4 each of ones that we like. They are not team specific. If you were like, hey, rate my team, that's not a question that's going to make it on a mailbag show. I'm very sorry about that. That's a question you should probably take into Discord or some other place where you can get some quick one-on-one. We're going to try to cover things that are a little more broad, a little more applicable to the fantasy community at large. And that's the plan of today's show. You can find Adam on social media at AdamKing91. You can call him Kingy once he's your friend. So, hi, Kingy. I'm Dan. You can find me on social at Dan Vespris, and I would highly recommend folks do that. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Everybody knows how the beginning of these shows goes. Adam, good morning to you. Or what do we do now? We say good whatever time of day it is. What's the proper greeting?
Yeah, I think it changes every time. It is morning. It is early, and I haven't heard anyone else up yet. They soon will be, as I am loudly speaking on a podcast. But they need to get going. They need to get to school.
That's
soonish.
Right. Yeah. Wake up, you bunch of buffoons. It's time to get going. Adam, I can't help but notice, before we get into our first question, that you've either rotated your camera or you've rotated your entire home.
Let's go with home because it sounds more impressive.
That's impressive.
Yes, we have flipped things around, so I am in the same room, just a different angle. And nice. I do have a screen thing that I have been putting up occasionally when people are knowingly walking behind me. But as no one is up, I don't know if that's happening, so I didn't put the screen up.
Yeah, the hell with the screen. This show is brought to you by our buddies over at Bet Online. Because it's that time of year again, friends. NBA's back from opening tip-off to buzzer beaters. Bet Online, as you covered, with the best odds, the biggest promotions, and, of course, live in-game betting on all your favorite teams this season. Every game matters, so Bet Online, understanding that, has every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the games. It's not just the NBA. They've got everything to bet on. Football, baseball, hockey, political props. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering, Bet Online. The game starts here. I've done my best to make this easy to follow for people, and if I screw something up, I apologize in advance. I'm attempting to go to trade off basically one question at a time that you picked and one question that I picked, but I use StreamYard. My technological know-how on video remains somewhat subpar. So with that, let's see if I can find the right question. 1, 2, 3. There we go. This is one of the ones that you picked, I believe, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Would you like to do the honors of reading question number 1?
I can do that. So this one came from ALRC. Alrk. When is it time to cut loose on a solid player you drafted who just isn't performing? How can you tell or feel comfortable that it's okay to drop? And then some examples, or a couple of examples, Mike Conley and Herb Jones. I thought this was just a good broad topic because we do get, well, I'm sure you do. If I do, you do. Questions about, do I need to drop this player? Who is the ad? And the word of the first 2 weeks, the panic is not everyone, a lot of people panic and make moves and drop players. And so, when is the right time to cut bait on those guys? I've read the question. You can lead off with the start of an answer.
Yeah, I think some of it depends on, and I know that to answer a question like this with a little wishy-washy is not what everybody wants to hear, but it is different for almost every player. You have to be very clear about what might be causing something to happen. an example I would throw out there, and we can even talk about the two names that ALRC brought up, like Mike Conley and Herb Jones. Conley, I'm a little worried about, but I'm not past that line yet, because he still has had among his games 2 or 3 that are fairly serviceable. He had a nice steals game. His assists have been okay. And if you pull out that first one that was truly, truly bad, he's been inside the top 100 since that day. So he's a guy I'm hanging on to. Herb Jones, we haven't really seen him get involved, but we have historically seen him go through these stretches where he's just not involved offensively. And then he kind of gets back in the mix and he goes through a stretch where he scores like 13 or 14 points and the steals and the blocks come around. But on the other hand, if you see someone whose role is just dramatically different than what you thought, Alex Caruso being, I think, a good example of this. I thought Caruso would play 27, 28 minutes with the Thunder. I thought he'd slot into whatever Giddey left behind last year, which was around 20, and then pull a few minutes from a young guy who wasn't maybe performing as well. And instead, he's just part of this swarm of Thunder reserves all playing 21 minutes a night. The leash on Alex Caruso for me is much shorter than the leash on Conley or Herb Jones or Jonas Valanciunas or someone where they're much closer to expectations than say Caruso is, who's off by, I mean, hell, we're talking like 30% ish off from what we thought he'd be doing, 35, 40%. Where with Conley, it's like 15% off. And Herb Jones, it's just not producing, but the minutes are there. So I think it's important to understand like what each player's situation looks like. Do you feel similarly on that, or do you have I feel like with head to head you have to have a little bit of a quicker trigger on stuff like this.
Yeah, I think it's. First thing is it does vary from one player to the next, and I think if you wanted to look at it and try and simplify it, for me it's a little bit of, well, how much do you have invested in the player? So if it's a top 50 player, I'm not dropping them after a week, because in your mind they were a top 50. That means they were probably in that range based on what analysts were saying, because a lot of people base their sort of opinions on what we're saying. So with a top 50 guy, I'm not going to give up on him in a week. But as you said, it does depend on what does their role look like? Are there injuries? And one bad game at this time of the year can drop a player. If you're just looking at their ranking going, oh, this guy, I thought he'd be top 60, but he's 130th. He might have had 3 good games and 1 really bad game. And it's 25% of what we're using as a data size. So it is still quite early. These are guys, yes, look, Caruso is another good example, Conley, Herb Jones. So for me, like, I think if you were looking at Conley, it's a situation where we haven't really, there's no injuries there. Like, this is, I just think, how they're going to utilize Conley. He's going to be in a bit of a minute split with Dante DiVincenzo. But then, also think about, well, what were your expectations on someone? Like Caruso is a really good example, because I talked about him on my show yesterday. Obviously, he's been bad. He's not playing minutes. He's playing 20 minutes a night, but he's averaging 1.7 steals and 1.3 blocks or something like that. And for me, in one league, I'm punting points. I'm punting assists. All I want from him is steals and blocks and to be efficient. And yes, he's only playing 20 minutes. Yes, it's unlikely he can keep up 3 defensive stats in 20 minutes, but maybe he can. So you do need to look at your build as well. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. But yeah, as you said, in head-to-head, you always have that, it's FOMO, isn't it? So like if you'll see these hot free agents getting picked up by guys, and then you'll be thinking, oh, I'm missing out on these by holding this player. And that's true to some degree. But yeah, it is a tough question. But I would, have a look. Where did I draft them? What am I expecting from them? Why is their production less or under where I thought it might be? Is it due to injuries? Is it due to shuffling rotations? Zach Edey is probably another really good example, with only playing 12 minutes a night or something like that. despite starting. So it's if you're in a league though and you can play the waiting game, I always say keep an eye on the waiver wire because players are getting dropped that you can swoop on and take advantage of people panicking.
Question number 2. This one was one that I selected. This is from ND at Dutch Kills. Is it my terrible draft? Sorry, ND. I hope it's not. Or are there less quality small forwards and power forwards available? I think I almost changed it to fewer there just to because I'm a grammar goober. What do you think on this one, Adam? Because I actually kind of ran into this a little bit myself, where I ended up with a few teams where I basically went like guard center, guard center, guard center over and over again, and then I realized partway through I was like, I don't have any wings on my team. Maybe this is why I don't have that many steals right now. It does kind of feel that way, but is it more anecdotal? Is it just like guys are sliding towards we want to draft assists early, so guards, everybody's always loading up on guards, and we're looking for the guys that are scoring a lot, and like then there's the flip side where you get the bigs that are getting a bunch of blocked shots. Is this a real thing, Adam, you think? Or again, talking to Adam King 91 of FBI and OMS fame, or is it in our heads?
Yeah, I'm just sort of scrolling through like some player ranks and things like that, and having a look at whether anything jumps off the page. I mean, I think it's potentially a little bit of managers chasing rebounds, chasing points, things like that early in drafts. So centers tend to go off the board in bunches. Guards go off early because people want to get those assists. And I mean, part of it is it could be whatever platform you're using. Position eligibility isn't where it's going to be in a month. Like both Yahoo Fantrax, I have no idea with ESPN because I don't play on ESPN, but Yahoo and Fantrax continually update their position eligibility. So someone might only be power forward eligible at the moment, but in a month they might be small forward, power forward. Center power forward is a common one. A lot of players will be only eligible at center, but might get power forward eligibility at some point. So it could change. But yes, look, I think it probably is. There is a little bit of a lack of small forwards at the top. Oh yeah, I don't know. It's because I punt so much. I probably don't tend to notice it as much. I'm sort of building specific categories, so I often just run out of centers, or vice versa. I run out of guards. So wings tend to be a position that I just pick up naturally through a draft. So it's not something that I notice specifically, but it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know whether this is something you've come across.
Yeah, I think my assessment of this isn't necessarily that there are fewer wings out there, but maybe fewer top shelf. And so maybe that, I think that might be the distinction here. Cause I was just sort of thinking like, what would make us think this is a case? And typically when I'm asking myself a question like that, I look at the top of the board. I look at the players that are dominating right now, or even think about guys and like where they were drafted. And the only wings right now that are putting up top 20 numbers to start the year are, I don't know if you want to call Kevin Durant a wing, but Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum. And then the rest of the top of the board is like shooting guards, point guards, shooting guards that are basically the point guard for their team, and centers. Because the top of the board is Shea, who's a shooting guard playing point guard, Jokic, Anthony Davis, Chet Holmgren, Jordan Poole, who's a shooting guard playing point guard, LaMelo, Evan Mobley, center, Durant. Now you finally get to, or Tatum also in there, by the way, Tatum and Durant. And then you've got Sabonis, center, Lillard, point guard, Kyrie, point guard, Jared Allen, center, Steph, injured now, but point guard. And it goes like that, basically, until you get outside the top 20. And all of a sudden, then there's Andrew Wiggins, DeMar DeRozan, Brandon Ingram. There's a host of them after you clear that top 20. And maybe it's more a reflection on where these guys were drafted than where they are ranked right now. But I think that might be the reason, is that we're thinking, oh, we don't have wings anymore. Well, it's because people tend to go for the centers and the point guards early. And then you're thinking, all right, well, like, what wing am I going to get? You're just getting like a serviceable one in the middle of your draft. So I think they're there. I just don't think that they're like the ones that break the bank, the big producers, the way perhaps that maybe there used to be more of them. But now fantasy has really gravitated towards, can you play point guard? Can you play center? Because that's where a lot of the stats seem to be clustered. Question number 3. This was an Adam selected question. Go ahead, good sir. You're back on the stage here.
So this one came from...
You picked everybody with hard names to read.
Andreas Crouch. So at Carpo Flex, and Flex spelled Karpofleks. I miscalculated at draft, became super strong in the 4 guard categories, but mediocre or bad at the other 5. Would trading players be the only way to fix my team? So, yeah, I picked this one because it's obviously a bit of a punt-related question. Became strong in the 4 guard categories, so I'm assuming we're talking points, threes. Yeah, see, I'm not sure what the 4 would be there, because for me there are 5 guard categories and 4 big categories. So points, threes, assists, steals, free throw percentage. They tend to be your guard stats. So I'm not sure.
Maybe steals?
Yeah, it could be steals. That is usually the one that I fall over in. If I am leaning into a guard build, I tend to come up short, or not tend to, but I often come up short in the steals category. So, I mean, starting, I guess, looking at this specific question, they would be the 5 I'd be chasing. So have a look at your team, and if you're really strong in whatever 4 of those 5 categories, there should be, if you've done it correctly, there should be 1 or 2 players that you can trade away without impacting your overall position in those categories. So you might have someone like a Tyus Jones on your team or something like that, who is getting you assists and steals, but you're so good in those categories that you can trade Tyus and get someone who gets more points, or something, if points is the 5th category that you're weak in. I guess more broadly, looking at this question, would trading players be the best way to fix my team? It's the obvious way, because it does depend on your league, and is it a 12-team league or a 10-team league? Because the depth of the waivers is going to be very different in a 14-team compared to a 10-team league. So picking players off waivers is the easiest option. Trading makes the most sense. But it's also, again, I think this almost links back into that first question. When is the right time to start, panicking, for lack of a better term, and worrying about this? Or, because I tend to give it a few weeks before I have a look at trading. And all I would do is have a look at the 5 categories that you want to be strong in, have a look at the standings. But doing that after 1 week there's no point, because the first week is always wild. There's always these weird performances. And so you need to give it, I think, 2 to 3 weeks to get a good enough sample size to look at points, look at assists, look at steals. Where am I positioned? How far behind am I? Where do I need to build up? And then have a look at teams. Go, like, if it is steals, if that's the 5th category that you're needing to improve, have a look at the steals stats in your league. Have a look at the teams who are sitting second last in that category. That, for me, that's who I would be targeting for a trade, because they theoretically don't care about steals. So they're more likely to trade someone who gets steals than a team who is sitting 3rd in steals. And
Adam, let me jump in and hit you with a follow-up on this too, because I don't have much to add to this one, but I do have a question for you, because you're sort of like one of the pioneers of the punt big strategy, which it sounds like this Andres here has sort of fallen into, whether on purpose or by accident. Would you ever consider, if let's say steals is the one, because sometimes if you lean so hard into the scoring guards, you end up with guys like Trae Young who get you 1 steal, and you get all these guys who get a ton of assists, and score and hit threes, then you're like, oh crap, I got a bunch of guys that get one steal. I needed like that one guy, or there's two guys that are at like 1.7, the guys that really can hit you in a given week. Would you ever consider basically just using your streaming slots, if this is head-to-head, which I assume it is, because Roto, if you're punting 4 categories, you're dead. Would you consider using your streaming slots exclusively to attack that 5th category you're worried about? Is that a possible strategy, or is that trying to thread the needle too much?
Look, it's possible. Again, it would depend on your league, because if you're in a 16-team league, chances of finding a difference maker in the steals category on the waivers is pretty low. Where in a standard league, there's a chance. So, like, I mean, for example, I can't think why, but I needed some steals in one league, and it was a standard league, I think. And so I picked up Cason Wallace.
Me too. Waivers. I did that once too.
Yeah, and
he's like 3 that day.
Yeah, and he's not going to score a lot, but he potentially isn't on the waivers in a 16-team league, but in a 12-team he probably is. I picked him up. He got 3 steals. Didn't do a lot else, but it's a streaming spot, so I don't care. So potentially, if your league allows for it based on the size of the league, then yeah, certainly you could look at just making that streaming spot a 5th category spot where you just stream in one category players like a Cason Wallace, or if an Alex Caruso is dropped, stream him in. So that is another option, definitely.
It's beyond hilarious, by the way, that the 3rd highest counting category for Cason Wallace right now is steals, I believe, on his numbers. He's averaging 6. He has a total of 18 points in 3 games. He has a total of 14 rebounds, and he has 8 steals. It's like he's gonna have more steals. And I guess Caruso's a little bit in that same bucket, where it's like you're gonna end up with more steals than points this year if you're not careful. But I thought that was funny, because I did the same thing on Sunday in one league, and other guys on my team ended up getting a bunch of steals, and he became sort of superfluous. But I had the same exact thought, like, hey, this is a chance to try to grab one extra category that I wasn't going to win. And lo and behold, there was Cason Wallace here. Let's see here. Let's go to this. Yeah, I like. Nope. That one actually sort of dovetails into the first question. Oh, crud. What did I do here? Did I lose your third? You had 3 questions. Oh, right. The other one was a screenshot. That's what I messed up. Okay, so let me go to my second question. Here we go. This is from Spoonfed. I like that name, Spoonfed. What are the differences in a hiccup and a red flag when it comes to drop watch? Also, any tips on trade construction? What do you look at for data, etc.? So I guess I'll just start this one. You know, it ties in a little bit to the first question, Adam, that you picked about, like, when do you consider a drop on somebody and when not. And again, like, the big thing to think about this time of year, the very quick response to the first half of this question is, a lot of teams are 3 games into their year. You have to try to think, what would I do if I saw this same 3-game stretch in January? Okay. Now, when you add that on top of, okay, did something obvious change? That's how you sort of get your difference between hiccup and red flag. But in terms of trade construction, I have a rant that I have to get off my chest. That was the real reason I put this one on my board. People have such a hard time with offering a good player to get the guy they want. For some reason, and I don't think anybody's doing this, no one's like doing this maliciously. It's just that when folks try to propose trades, even when it's a buy low, they offer a sell low. You can't do it that way. I want everybody that's listening to this show to just take one moment, take a deep breath, and think, what is Dan talking about right now? What am I not hearing when I like go into his mentions and I'm like, what can I get for Tobias Harris right now? Nothing. Why? I'm trying to trade for Chet Holmgren right now. No, you buy low and you sell high. And it's supposed to feel somewhat nauseating when you do it, because you're giving away the guy that's hot. You're giving away the guy that's performing above your full season expectations. You have to make sure that you trust your projections on this, because if you think they're coming down, you try to know, okay, this is what they're going to be at the end of the day. But it also doesn't work overnight. Like, I think I put out a call for a buy low on Jalen Johnson, and he had another bad game first. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't work the first day every time. That's not how this stuff works. So if you're making a trade, and this is not me yelling at Spoonfed, he just brought up the topic. Make sure you are offering up an overperforming player who you believe is going to slip back. Don't offer up crap on a buy low, or you're going to get turned down. Mid-season, I have totally different thoughts on trade construction, but this is not mid-season. It's October 30th when we're recording this right now. It's the 31st for you, Halloween. So, Adam, what are your thoughts on trade construction? How do you work that during the beginning parts of a year?
Yeah, it is I think a little bit of what you said there. It is a bit of a mental block, and I think we're probably all guilty of it in that selling high on a player is hard because you part of you thinks, what if they keep it up? What if? And I'm just looking at the ranks at the moment, and the obvious guy that jumps off the page is Jordan Poole.
Yeah,
he's the 5th ranked player in 9 category. I think that's what I've got it set to 9 category. So he's the 5th ranked player. So, and I think we all sort of thought, oh yeah, he'll probably be top 70, top 80 this season, and he's been a first round player. But I mean, you look, and I talked about this with Matty G on our show the other night, and you look at his stats, he's not going to get 3 steals a game. He is not going to shoot 51% from the field. There is a lot that needs to come down here. But if you wanted to try and get, I don't know, a top 50 player who's underperforming, so if, I don't know, who's a good example? Jalen Johnson. I mean, Jalen Williams, the guy you just mentioned. So if you wanted to try and get Jalen Williams, who is outside the top 130, I think, and offer up Jordan Poole, that's a beginning of the season, no-brainer. Of course you would take Jalen Williams over Jordan Poole. But now you would be a bit like, well, Jordan Poole, he's getting all these points, he's hitting threes, he's getting steals. Jalen Williams is in a much better team. Is he going to improve? And so you're going to be really hesitant to offer up Jordan Poole. And so instead, you might go, I'm going to offer up Tobias Harris for Jalen Williams. And both are underperforming. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So, yeah, I agree. I agree that it is a bit of a mental block. And there are leagues, like I'm in so many leagues, some of them trades happen daily almost. I'm always getting notifications about trades that are happening. And then in other leagues, there might not be a trade all year because people are just so hesitant to hit that button and send off someone who is overperforming. So I do think it is a bit of a mental block, as you said, but that's the way a trade should work.
Yep. You got to offer up something that you don't want to offer up. That is what needs to happen. Adam's last question came via, I believe, a direct message. So we had to do a little fancy footwork here and get it on a screenshot. But there we go. I don't know what the hell I did with my third question. I may have lost that tab, but whatever. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Adam, what's question number 3 we want to talk about?
So question 3, it did come in a DM from Andy Sards. Mailbag question. Given all the injuries and load management days in the NBA, are weekly leagues where you can't change your lineup except for before the games tip off on a Monday, are they a thing of the past? Yeah, look, I hate weekly leagues, and I haven't been in a weekly league for quite a while, and I mean, people ask me questions. I mean, look, I write an article for weekly leagues for RotoWire. I write a weekly sit start. So who am I sitting or who am I starting based on the weekly schedule? So they exist. They are out there, weekly leagues, and people do play in them. But for me, we'll look at that IT skill work.
You like that?
I do. Impressive.
I was messing. So I'm realizing, and not that this matters to anyone, but like, even if it's behind another window, if my mouse crosses over where this particular tab is open, people can see my mouse just flying across the screen. It's not, I promise you, it's not in the foreground. It's behind the video tab I have open. So I was like, well, what if I make this Microsoft Pictures window really small and slide it off to the side. And then I managed to pull off that nice little zoom trick there in the process. So that was me tumbling over my nose into a pretty good little move. Anyway, continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you with
no. So look, I mean, short answer for me, yes. I don't think you should be in a weekly league. I don't think they just don't make sense I don't think they made sense. Well, they probably did it at some point, but for the last few years with the uncertainty regarding players, I mean, you think back to the 90s and stuff when Jordan was playing, those guys, a ton of guys played 75 games, 78 games. You look at the game log, if you go back through historical fantasy ranks and things like that, it's not uncommon for people to play 82 games. Now, other than Mikal Bridges, no one plays 82 games. And the average, I think I did this last year, the average game played now is about 65. Who knows if that goes up or down, but you're always, those elite guys, we talk about durability being a hidden category of fantasy, that sort of thing. Even Nikola Jokic missed a few games last year, and he's someone who's been very durable. And that was simply because the Nuggets are wanting to give him the night off every now and then. So it's so hard in a weekly league to go, okay, this guy has a 4-game week. It would be an interesting exercise to have a look at, I don't know how you do it, but have a look at 4-game weeks and actually figure out the percentage of how many players actually play 4 games in a week compared to how many are scheduled for 4 games. Like, is it 80%? Is it 70? Is it 50? It would be interesting to see what the hit rate is on 4-game weeks. And I would assume, and this again would be a bit of, you'd have to dig into some data, the percentage would drop as we get later into the season. So as players are generally healthy. In February, you're probably going to see a lower hit rate. That's my thought. I wouldn't do a weekly league. I don't do weekly leagues, but I do know they exist.
Yeah, I'm thinking, like, you don't even have to go back to the 90s. You can go back to, like, 2015. It really hasn't even been that long. Like, go to the Basketball Monster player rank page. This is a really fast way to do it. Go to 2015. Forget the fact that you can just quickly scan the board and see a lot of 70s and quite a number of 80 some odd numbers. Go to, like, someone ranked in the 55 range who played 76 games that year. By the way, hilarious footnote, Tobias Harris was ranked 58th that year and played 76 games. This is the 2015-2016 season. What did I just say? 58th, and he played 76 games. And then you just switch it over to look at totals instead of per game. He only went up from 50-something to late 40s. Right now, if someone in the 50s, you can go to last year instead of this current season, look for somebody ranked in the 50s that played 76 games. Grayson Allen actually is a great example of this. He was number 58 last year, played in 75 games. His totals rank jumps all the way up to 42. So just that simple fix there, like, you're seeing guys that play 75, 76 games right now, jumping a round and a half, 2 rounds of value, because the average is 70, 71, 72 games a year. And during COVID, thank God, actually, we're a few years out from that. It was like 68 for a few seasons there. But the average more like 74, 75 then. So, like, it really hasn't been that long since it was guys playing 90% of their team's games. But all that to come back to, yeah, I mean, weekly leagues are nuts. You need to be able to take an injured player out of your lineup because it happens regularly. We've seen it this week. A bunch of guys got hurt between Monday and Tuesday this week. Yesterday alone, on a 4-game card, Larry Markkinen left with back spasms. Herb Jones got his shoulder fallen on. CJ McCollum is dealing with adductor soreness. You're risking now losing the rest of the week from these guys. And that was on a day when only 8 teams played. If you go to the previous day, Kyle Kuzma blew out a groin. He's out for multiple weeks. Dyson Daniels is out for a week and a half. We can go down the board really fast. Scotty Barnes, injured on Monday, got his face broken. He's out for 3 weeks or more. Josh Hart turned an ankle. Lonzo Ball sprained but you were starting him anyway. Sprained a wrist. Taylor Hendricks, poor guy, his leg exploded on Monday. If you had these guys in your lineup in a weekly league, you're cooked. You need to be able to swap those guys out. It hurts enough to have a guy injured when you can actually take them out of your lineup, let alone just like, all right, well, I guess that week is done. So I get it. I understand the desire to make it more like football where you just said it once and you can forget about it. There is a certain appeal to not having to be paying attention every single day all the time, but also you should pay attention every day a little bit, just enough to be able to pull a guy out of your lineup who's posting zeros. So yes, I think weekly leagues are probably a bit obsolete. You can either go with the set it and forget it best ball, which you draft it and let it go, or you're playing every day, because like the in between, it doesn't satisfy anybody. I don't really know what the heck it's for anymore.
And I just think a little bit more, one more sort of thing on that. It also makes it really hard if you've got someone like a Trey Murphy, Isaiah Hartenstein. I'm thinking of guys that we know are out for 4 weeks or 2 weeks, and so they've missed a significant period of time. When do you activate them? Because if it's a weekly league and they say, oh, look, like Trey Murphy, he's close, or Devin Vassell, there's another good example. Devin Vassell, they're saying he's going to be back first week of November. So theoretically, he could be back next week. But do you activate him next week? Because he might come back, but he might only play 20 minutes a night, or he might sit one of their 4 games. Okay, I'll keep him on the bench. What about the next week? Are they ramping him up?
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know. And so you have to make that decision then on a Sunday night or a Monday afternoon or whenever your lineup's locked. Do I activate this player? And probably 9 times out of 10, you're going to go, no, I don't want to take the risk. I'm not going to activate Trey Murphy or Devin Vassell. And then Devin Vassell might come out and play in all 4 games and average 19 points, 2 steals. And you go, well, what the hell? I could have had him in my lineup, but I didn't know. So that would be frustrating as well for me.
Very. Make it. We have to have rules to make this as fun as possible. And I don't know. Weekly is just not. It's not as much fun, I think, ultimately. Here we go. One last question. If you did one about a 4 category punt, I'm throwing one Roto question in there for myself too. Ben Mitchell asks, Dan, this is first time playing Roto. What general strategies do you use in regards to how you hit your games cap over the season? And do you have any other good tips for Roto strategy? I haven't talked about Roto as much as I'd like while sort of building up this old man squad channel. I try to touch on everything and every show as best I can, but it's like a 9 out of 10, 9-to-1 ratio here on Roto, on head-to-head versus Roto. Even though everybody knows personally, I think Roto is a fairer fantasy game, and I would encourage everybody to try it. You don't get stuck with the week-to-week wild swings, but I guess a lot of people like that stuff. Anyway, quick thoughts on Roto strategy. With the games cap, at the beginning of the year, I am playing guys that I know are going to give me top 100 or value better. Whether that's 8 guys or 12 has to do with how well my draft went. But if there's anybody that I'm on the fence about, I am not playing them at the beginning of the year. I believe that during the season, and my burger board, as people know, my injury replacement guys, there are, and right now there's like a dozen of them, and we're 8 days into the season. These guys pop up all the time. And because there's no moves limit in most Roto leagues where you have a games cap, you can just pick up injury replacements, even if they're just for 1 game. You drop a guy in, you get like a 17-10 line out of them, and then you cast them back into the ocean. That is more valuable to your Roto team than starting a top 130 guy every single day all season long. So be very active on the waiver wire. You're looking for individual big performances to use against your games cap. And early in the year, don't take crappy games from guys just because it looks like you're falling behind a little bit. Because if you look at games played, you're 7, 8, 9 days into the season whenever you're watching this thing, you might have used 35 games, and the teams all around you in the Roto standings might have used 45 games. What's that? That doesn't sound like that much, but that's enormous at this time of year. So you might be dead last in your Roto league, but it's because everybody else has used, whatever it is, like 25, 30%, not that much, more like 10, 15% more games than you, where if you use that, you'd rocket from the bottom to the top. So be judicious. Don't worry about the rankings as much as how your each individual game is going. Because if you can see it when you look at your team page. Did your guys have good games? Yes, great. That's good enough. And then as the season goes, typically come December, we'll talk more about this when we get there. That's when you're starting to see, okay, am I like second from the bottom in anything? Is there any way that I can attack a specific category and jump maybe 1 or 2 roto points when people aren't really paying attention to me? Adam, I don't mean to step over you on this one. Do you have any roto thoughts that you wanted to add on this one?
Yeah, look, I mean, roto is it's not a format that I thrive in, and I think part of that is just because I haven't played enough roto. My initiation into fantasy was head to head, and so for quite a while I didn't even know roto existed until I started broadening my horizons a bit, and so I just don't know, sort of have friends that play roto or anything like that. So it is a strategy that I struggle with, and I almost always come up short in games played. So for me, and I think I do overthink it a little bit, and I look at so 82 games, whatever the games cap is per position, and I really stick to that. Like, in my mind, I plan it so that on the final day, I'm hitting 82 games on those you don't
each
of the spots, and that doesn't happen. And I always, and I'll look at the standings and I'll go, yep, okay, I'm sitting 4th overall, but I've played 50 less games than the guy who's at the top, so I'm going to be fine. Once we get to the last month, he's not going to have any games left. I can just make up all this ground. It never happens. And I do it every year. And it's because the guys are then getting rested. And so I'm relying on these trashy guys who are getting minutes to try and lift these categories. And it just doesn't happen. So I actually don't think I'm in a roto league this year. I need to. It's disgusting. I should be. I think I need to just play my guys. And as you said, if they're top 100 players, just play them, roll them out there. And guys, as we just said, I mean, this almost does link into that that question we had regarding like value and games played. Guys aren't playing 82 games. They're playing 70. They're playing 65. So if you're playing someone like a LaMelo Ball with a view to him playing 82 games, 95% chance it's not going to happen. And so you're going to get to the end of the season and he's only played 60 and you've got 10 games sitting in his spot that you haven't used. So I don't know if that makes sense, but to me, that's where I always come up short. I'm very good at finishing 3rd or 4th, but I end up with 30 less games played than the guy that won.
Yeah, you don't want to fall more than about 15 to 20 games behind, and you can make that up. And then the other thing is, like, you want to make that up before you get to like the last 3 weeks. You want to try to start making that up with about 6 or so weeks to go, I think. And I can come back to this question too down the line, just be like, here's what I'm doing in my roto leagues right now. But I love the long haul of a roto format. It plays to my lifestyle, which is like when I played role-playing video games, I wanted to collect every treasure in every dungeon, and I'll spend every moment to do it. And that's I don't need the instant gratification. I like that slow plod through a season because I feel like I'm going to outgame everybody. But that is our 3-3 on today's show. That is the first official mailbag episode of this 2024 NBA campaign. Kingy, I forgot to do the mid-show promo. First of all, you can find Adam again on Twitter at AdamKing91. But where can everybody check out all your stuff, including your now daily pod?
You've said Twitter at AdamKing91, at FBI Basketball is where we are broadly. Yes, daily show. I was going to do 5 days a week. I'm already doing 6. So the only day I'm not recording is a Monday my time. So a Monday night, which is the Sunday end of the week, which is probably not a good day, actually. That's probably a day I should be recording because it's the end of the week. But Monday night is my movie night, and that's I often head to the cinema to watch movies with my friends. So nice. I didn't want to commit. But yes, daily show, plus some weekly stuff thrown in. Maddie G and I are doing a show once a week. I'm thinking of doing a weekly sort of waiver wire show as well with someone, whoever will jump on with me, so I don't have to talk by myself, as you are very good at doing that. But
yeah,
I'd rather talk to someone.
Yeah, that's easier.
Easier. So yes, so plenty of content. I've got two articles a week at RotoWire, which are I said, a weekly sit start, and what's my other article? I've only done it.
That one's going well, I take it.
Well, no, it was really fun, and I can't even remember. Anyway, there's 2 articles on RotoWire that I'm doing. So yeah, lots of content, lots of Twitter stuff, daily pod tweets and daily recaps, and I know you're doing the tweet storms a little bit in Discord, a little bit on Twitter. So I'm doing my recaps, which aren't threads like yours. I take the lazy route and just do one tweet.
It's so much easier though. Like someday it's gonna get me. Adam, as always, a massive pleasure. He is Adam King 91, and that is our mailbag show. I don't have an outro here because I don't actually know when this show is dropping. Everybody subscribe to Old Man Squad, to FBI. Follow Adam on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Leave 5-star reviews. Do all the positive, cool stuff that everybody's been doing since we launched this network. And we'll have another one of these for you down the line. Adam, au revoir.
Thank you, sir.
See you guys.